He's wealthier than Elon Musk, but started out pumping gas in Yemen. Sounds unbelievable. But that's how India's most powerful corporate empire, Reliance Industries, began. And the man behind it, Mukesh Ambani, wasn't some Ivy League tech genius. He wasn't born into old money either. In 1981, fresh out of Stanford, Mukesh didn't walk into a sleek corporate tower. He walked into a cramped two-bedroom flat in Mumbai, his childhood home. That's where his empire began, at the dinner table, where business meetings replaced family meals. He came of age in an India strangled by socialist red tape. But instead of fighting the system, Mukesh learned to master it, while others saw rules. He saw loopholes, using state control as a ladder to billionaire status. But this story only gets more intense. He once clashed with his own brother in a public feud that made headlines. He sank $35 billion into a telecom startup that didn't make a single rupee for years. Industry insiders laughed. Then he dropped the price of mobile data by 90%, forcing telecom giants to merge or die. India went from digital desert to the world's #1 mobile data consumer almost overnight. And now Mukesh Ambani is making his boldest move yet, a full-scale energy takeover, replacing oil with green power. And he's handing the future of his $200 billion empire to 3 children, each under 35, each in charge of industries that shape India's economy. None of them elected, yet all of them capable of bending markets with a single boardroom decision. What happens at Minute 11 will make you question everything you thought you knew about global power. Most billionaires are defined by the towers they build. Mukesh Ambani. His empire started in a 2-bedroom apartment shared with his parents and siblings in one of Mumbai's busiest districts. There was no office, no polished boardroom, just a dining table where his father, Dhirubhai Ambani, conducted deals over dinner. And young Mukesh listened silently, absorbing every lesson like gospel. His father had a simple belief: if the government doesn't tell us we can't dream, then we should dream as big as possible. India in the 1970s was a regulatory nightmare. To start a factory, you needed 80 government approvals. Import taxes topped 200%. Most business leaders either gave up or played it safe. Dhirubhai did neither. He built Reliance during India's most restrictive economic era, not by breaking the rules, but by understanding them better than the bureaucrats. Mukesh witnessed this from the front row. "My father had me sit in meetings from age 12, not to talk, just to listen," he later said. It was in this humble flat that the foundations of India's largest private company were quietly laid, while other entrepreneurs chased luxury markets. The Ambanis went the opposite way, serving millions of lower and middle-class Indians with affordable quality. Their motto, think big, think fast, think ahead. That mindset would later define how Mukesh ran the company and how he would eventually reshape the future of India itself. But what made him leave Silicon Valley behind for all this chaos? That answer begins with a single late-night phone call and a decision that would change everything. In 1979, Mukesh Ambani landed at Stanford University, the heart of Silicon Valley, to pursue an MBA. For a boy who grew up in a cramped apartment in Mumbai, it was a new universe: clean streets, world-class professors, and limitless opportunity. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud. "I came here to understand how advanced economies work," he told classmates. "I want to build systems that can work back home," while India's business class still operated like closed-door clubs. Mukesh was making international connections, studying capitalism at its most refined. It was his escape and his future. But in 1981, the phone rang. On the other end was his father, Dhirubhai. He had just secured land to build Reliance's first polyester yarn factory. "Mukesh, this is our chance to transform the company," he said. "I need you here, not in California. No commands, no pressure, just a challenge." For Mukesh, it was a brutal choice: stay in the US, or finish his degree, and perhaps become a global executive, or return to a country drowning in red tape to help build something that didn't yet exist. "Some nights I'd walk Stanford's campus until dawn," a classmate recalled. He was torn between two worlds. Within weeks, Mukesh made the call. He dropped out of Stanford and boarded a flight to Mumbai. His first assignment, not a boardroom, not a strategy session, a construction site in a swampy industrial zone outside Mumbai. There, in dirt-stained overalls, the Stanford dropout worked alongside laborers, learning machines, resolving logistics, and driving progress. This wasn't symbolic. It was survival. You can't manage what you don't understand, Mukesh said later. And if you don't understand factories in India, you can't build anything here. It was this brutal, hands-on crash course in Indian industrialism that would hardwire Mukesh for everything that came next. And what came next was a $230 million gamble that could have killed the company. By the mid-1980s, Mukesh Ambani was no longer the nervous Stanford dropout. He was running the day-to-day operations at Reliance, still young, but already hardened by real-world trials. Then came his boldest idea yet. Mukesh wanted to transform Reliance from a textile trader into a petrochemical giant, an industry that barely existed in India at the time. The scale was staggering: a $230 million plant in Hazira, Gujarat. That was more than Reliance's entire market value. People thought he was insane. India didn't have the engineers, the infrastructure, the supply chain, even the ports to handle specialized equipment. It would take miracles and deep technical knowledge to even attempt this. But Mukesh wasn't bluffing. He studied every blueprint, questioned every supplier, personally reviewed chemical processes. When vendors tried to overcharge Reliance, assuming he was just the owner's son, he shocked them with deep technical counter questions. Then came the financing. No Indian bank was lending that kind of money to a petrochemical moonshot. So Mukesh turned to the public, launching Reliance's first mass IPO campaign, aimed not at wealthy elites, but at middle-class Indians. They held town halls in small cities, simplified chemical supply chains for first-time investors, and made millions of Indians partial owners of their dream. Construction began in 1986, and everything that could go wrong did. Specialized welders didn't exist in India. Mukesh built training programs from scratch, broken equipment from Europe. He opened on-site repair units to avoid delays. It wasn't just about building a plant. One former engineer said he was building a blueprint for modern Indian industry. By the time the Hazira plant was completed, India's economy was on the brink of reform. Reliance wasn't just prepared, it was perfectly positioned to dominate the new era. But inside the Ambani household, a different kind of storm was brewing. A power struggle was about to erupt between two brothers. By the early 2000s, Reliance had become India's largest private company. Worth over $12 billion, it controlled textiles, petrochemicals, oil refining, and had just begun expanding into telecom and finance. But then, everything changed. In July 2002, Dhirubhai Ambani, the visionary founder, suffered a stroke and died. He left behind an empire, but no will, no formal succession plan. Just two sons: Mukesh, the methodical operator, and Anil, the flashy financier. At first, things seemed fine. Mukesh took over as chairman of Reliance Industries, while Anil managed the company's newer ventures: telecom, power, and entertainment. But behind the scenes, tension simmered. Mukesh valued control, integration, and long-term planning. Anil wanted speed, aggressive expansion, and high-risk growth. One brother wore dusty engineering boots. The other flew private to Bollywood parties. It couldn't last. In 2004, Mukesh stunned the business world by telling a TV reporter, "There are ownership issues, they're being resolved." That single sentence set off a media firestorm. Boardrooms turned into battlegrounds. Executives chose sides. Company meetings reportedly had the brothers seated at opposite ends of the table, not speaking to each other. The feud was threatening to tear apart India's most admired company. Then, the unlikeliest peacemaker stepped in: their mother, Laban Ambani. In June 2005, she brokered what became known as the Ambani family settlement. The empire was split down the middle. Mukesh kept petrochemicals, oil, and manufacturing. Anil got telecom, power, and finance. There was a non-compete clause: they couldn't enter each other's domains. That clause expired in 2010. Anil had all the flash. Mukesh had the infrastructure. At first, it looked like Anil was winning faster growth, more headlines. But by the end of the decade, their fortunes had flipped. Anil's companies were drowning in debt. Mukesh, he was plotting a digital coup that would redefine India's future and destroy an entire industry. By 2010, India had over 1 billion mobile users, but only a fraction of them were online. Mobile data was expensive, unreliable, and controlled by a telecom oligopoly, Airtel, Vodafone, and Idea. They had no reason to innovate, no reason to lower prices. Mukesh Ambani saw an opening and moved in silence. In 2010, Reliance quietly acquired a company called Infotel Broadband, which just happened to hold nationwide 4G spectrum rights. Then came the secret phase over 6 years. Reliance laid more than 250,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable, enough to circle the Earth 6 times. They connected 18,000 towns and cities. All of this was done before earning a single rupee. Industry analysts laughed. $35 billion onto a telecom startup. No revenue, no customers. They called it the most expensive tech vanity project in Indian history, but Mukesh wasn't building a telecom company. He was building a platform for digital domination. In 2016, Reliance Jio launched with the welcome offer: free 4G data, free calls, free streaming, free everything. For 6 months, India, a country where most people earned less than $2 a day, was suddenly handed free internet, no strings attached. The result, 100 million subscribers in 170 days, 7 new users every second. The fastest growth in telecom history. Competitors panicked. Vodafone and Idea merged in desperation. Airtel posted its first loss in 15 years. Smaller players simply died. It's not just about data. One Jio executive said, "We rewired the economy." Suddenly, rickshaw drivers were using Google Maps. Farmers were checking crop prices in real time. Street vendors were taking WhatsApp orders. A vegetable seller in Uttar Pradesh doubled her income overnight. Before Jio, India used 200 million gigabytes of mobile data per month. A year later, 1.5 billion. India leapfrogged the US to become the largest consumer of mobile data on Earth. But Mukesh wasn't done. Jio wasn't the endgame. It was the entry point. Next, he would build an empire that combined e-commerce, finance, content, and AI, and hand it over to a new generation of Ambanis. For all his control, Mukesh Ambani knew one truth too well: empires crumble from the inside. He'd lived it. He'd watched his father leave behind chaos. He'd survived the public fallout of a family feud that nearly split India's most powerful company in half. So, this time, he wasn't leaving anything to chance. Starting in 2000, Mukesh began a carefully choreographed rollout of the next Ambani generation, not through press releases, through shareholder meetings, the most public stage in Indian capitalism. Each child was introduced with strategic precision, not as children of a billionaire, but as CEOs in training, each handpicked to control a leg of Reliance's sprawling empire. I'm planting the seeds today that will grow into a forest of wealth for generations. Mukesh said, "Let's break it down." Mukesh Ambani, the eldest son, now chairs Jio, the telecom giant that disrupted India. He's seen as technically minded, overseeing the push into 5G and AI infrastructure. His marriage into another Indian billionaire family, the Mehtas, was more than personal. It was strategic. Isha Ambani, his twin sister, took over Reliance Retail, India's largest retail network. With degrees from Yale and Stanford, she's driving both luxury acquisitions and digital commerce, blending Western efficiency with Indian scale. Her playbook is clear: conquer scale first, disrupt later. Anant Ambani, the youngest, was handed the company's most ambitious pivot: clean energy. In 2021, Mukesh announced a $10 billion investment in solar, hydrogen, and renewables. It was Reliance's first step away from oil, and Anant is in charge of executing it. Together, they represent the next phase of India's economic evolution. Textiles, telecom, tech, green energy. But behind the smooth handovers and billion-dollar strategies, questions still linger. Just how much of Reliance's rise came from business brilliance and how much from quiet political engineering? Because if the data revolution was Mukesh's boldest bet, then the way he bent India's rules to fit his vision might be his most powerful legacy yet. For decades, Mukesh Ambani has operated like a chess grandmaster, moving silently, staying 5 steps ahead and never showing his full hand. He didn't just build a business. He embedded Reliance into India's daily life: the fuel in your car, the call on your phone, the app you pay with, the groceries at your door. And yet, most Indians never voted for him, never chose him. But still, he's one of the most powerful figures in the country. Critics point to timely policy shifts that conveniently favored Reliance, telecom spectrum auctions that shut out competitors, e-commerce regulations that hurt Amazon just as Reliance entered the space, political neutrality that gave him access to every ruling party, regardless of ideology. And when questioned, Mukesh remains calm. Our size comes from doing things well, not from special treatment. Maybe he's right. After all, no one forced 100 million people to sign up for Jio. No one forced Silicon Valley giants like Google and Facebook to invest billions into Reliance. And no one can deny the visible, measurable transformation his empire brought to India's digital economy. Still, one question hangs in the air. If one man can change how 1 billion people live, who holds him accountable as Mukesh passes the torch to his children? He's not just preserving his fortune, he's engineering the future of a country where the line between government and business gets blurrier each year. You may admire him, you may fear him, but you can't ignore him. So now we ask you, is Mukesh Ambani the architect of modern India, or the man who quietly captured it?